This week in CA football presented by Geico returns on this final day of September. I'm Bobby Broyles, here as always with Tim McDonald. Tim, we won't waste any time getting to the top headline from week 4. CA football joined the hashtag Fear the FCS party as James Madison used its electrifying offense to stun SMU out of the American Athletic Conference.
We said there was a potential for upset, and boys, did JMU not disappoint. You know, one of the best wins, I'd say, of the season, not only the FCS level against FBS foes, but in CA football, definitely the headlining victory of the season so far. Vad Lee named CA Player of the Week, Stats FCS Player of the Week. Look at that game, it's a back-and-forth affair. JMU's shooting back and forth, 48-45, they come up with the win. John Miller catches a 17-yard touchdown pass from Vad Lee. What does Vad Lee do? 565 yards of total offense. That's a JMU record, okay, not a big deal. No. 276 rush yards, also a JMU singles-game record. 5 total touchdowns. An impressive win for JMU. We knew it was possible. We knew it was going to be a shootout. Art Briles and Gary Patterson, TCU and Baylor, eat your heart out because JMU's 729 yards was better than TCU and Baylor did against SMU. A huge win. Hey, let's talk about Elon, too. Give a little love to the Phoenix. Oh, yeah. They pick up a huge win versus Towson. Didn't outscored 13-0 in the first quarter, but come back and win that one. And William & Mary shuts out Stony Brook 21-0. I don't know what I was more impressed with, William & Mary's defense or William & Mary's offense. Either way, the headliner this week is Bad Vad Lee from JMU. But again, another important week for a couple of other teams in CA football play.
Absolutely, and now as the calendar flips over to October, a triple header of conference games will be on TV Saturday, beginning with the number 6 Dukes and Stony Brook facing off in Harrisonburg at high noon on Comcast Sportsnet and CA.TV.
You got to stay with the Dukes right after that headline.
Oh, yeah, you have to.
I look at this game in 2 ways. First, Stony Brook needs to rebound, and they need to rebound fast. You know, they're going to be without Stacey Bedell at running back. They just got shut out at William & Mary. And I look at it the other way for JMU. Way up, they feel blessed, which is great.
Yes.
Which is great. You know, they should. But also you got to come back down to earth a little bit. This is a CA football game, a huge contest, not only for their chance to move forward in CA football play with their second win, but it's a conference game, and it's a huge game down the line. But I look at the weapons for James Madison. Besides the Vad Lee show, we've seen a lot of guys. We've seen Khalid Abdullah, the running back. We've seen Carden Johnson. Basically the same running backs. They both can get it done. Brandon Ravenel on the outside. John Miller, a guy who we also talked about. There's so many weapons. It's hard to pick where you want to defend James Madison if you're Stony Brook coming into this game. Isaiah White, freshman running back. Donald Leotine, the running back for Stony Brook. Both of them are going to get the carries, and it's going to be heavy. Carbone and Connor Bednarski, the quarterbacks for Stony Brook. If there's any chink in the armor in JMU, it's probably their pass defense. Yeah. They've given up a lot of points and a lot of yards to the pass. But right now, Carbone and Bednarski only each have 1 touchdown this season alone. So I don't know if Stony Brook can get it done through the air. I don't think they're going to have that much success on the ground without Bedell. It's a Saturday in Harrisonburg. It's family weekend. It's a high noon game. JMU right now has all the momentum. Number 1 in total offense in the nation. Number 1 in rush offense. 134 first downs. Where do you stop JMU? I think that's pick your poison. If you're Stony Brook, they got to start somewhere.
You can also listen to this game on Sirius Channel 113 and XM 205. After that one finishes, flip over to the American Sports Network at 3:30 as Elon, coming off its first ever conference win, travels to Durham to take on New Hampshire. This game is also available online on CA.TV.
An important note that you just mentioned, Elon, not only is it a conference win, it's their first ever CA football win. And to do it over Towson is just impressive. Elon, Rich Trosky talked a lot about this week. They just made plays in opportune times. They did well on 4th down, did well on 3rd down. Again, went down 13-0 against Towson at home. Okay, tough hole. Come back home, get it done. Connor Christensen didn't wow anyone, didn't make huge plays, but he got the plays needed for his team. They come back and win 17-13. You see the locker room after just absolutely jubilant with that team. A huge win for Elon moving forward. Now you got to rehat the ship a little bit. You got a tough contest now coming up at UNH. And New Hampshire last week, what else can you say? Got it done, got the mojo back a little bit. 57-14 over Central Connecticut State. Had a fumble return for a touchdown. Had a couple of big plays on offense. 25-0 after the first quarter. I'm interested in this game. Elon's rush offense is 11th in CA football, 76 yards per game. UNH rush D, last in CA football, 220 yards per game. Something's got to give in that category. I'm looking at UNH right now. Adam Reese and Trevor Knight shared the quarterback position last week. Both accounted for 4 touchdowns passing. So that's a good sign for New Hampshire's offense. It's New Hampshire's homecoming game. We know that's a game where that stadium actually does get full for that contest and it gets a little bit rowdy. Interesting matchup. Elon can get a lot of momentum moving forward. So can UNH, still looking also for a CA football win.
Then in the nightcap, CA football makes its season debut on NBC Sports Network as Delaware hosts William & Mary at 7:30. You can also stream or see the stream of this game live on NBC Sports Live Extra.
You know, I would call this a trap game if Delaware was going to William & Mary. On the other hand, you look at William & Mary, and a statement win. I was on hand last week in Williamsburg, 21-0, and it actually could have been more points. They could have scored before halftime, missed a field goal. What they did to Stony Brook's rushing attack last week was just phenomenal. William & Mary right now ranks 8th in the FCS in rush D, 87.8 yards per game. Delaware, on the other hand, comes into this game. Yes, a tough loss, gave up 40-plus points at North Carolina, but right now they do average 226 yards per game. Thomas Jefferson last week, the freshman, had 163 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kareem Williams had 95 yards. Again, the third straight contest, though, where Delaware struggled throwing the ball, didn't get over 100 yards. They're going to need to improve in that category in order to beat William & Mary. Kendall Anderson last week for William & Mary was an absolute beast, 190-plus yards, 2 touchdowns. And the best part about that game was I got called out in the press conference by Tyler Clater, the defensive lineman for William & Mary. He said, Tim, you talked all week about Stony Brook's defense. What about our defense? He's right. I'm sorry. Stony Brook's defense was not the best defense that played on that field last week. It was William & Mary. I think that's going to be the key this week. I think William & Mary's defense is ready to prove people wrong this year.
Elsewhere in conference play on Saturday, Richmond hosts Maine at 3:30 with a regional broadcast on Comcast Sportsnet Mid-Atlantic Plus and radio coverage on Sirius 113 and XM 205.
I like this matchup. For one, Maine, yes, it's a road game, but it's not too far of a road game. Plus, it's going to be good weather here in Richmond. Maine and Richmond have played some good contests in the last couple of years. Maine comes into this one with the win over Rhode Island, 27-17. Wasn't the biggest, prom queen, nice little, looking good. Wasn't the biggest win of all time, but it was a nice win in CA football play. Held Rhode to -8 rush yards. I think the question is going to be, can Maine generate enough offense, as it always has been this year so far? Dan Collins seems to have found his new favorite wide receiver in Micah Wright. He's had 2 straight back-to-back 100-yard receiving games. Richmond, again, had a bye week to prepare for this one. Kyle Oletta has looked good. 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. We know about Seth Green and Jacoby Fisher. Richmond right now is number 2 in scoring offense. Again, they haven't played a CA football contest yet. 31.3 points per game, 4th in total offense, 382 yards per game. Nigel Beckford for Maine got it done a little bit last week on the run game, which was encouraging. It's Maine's defense versus Richmond's offense. That's absolutely the key this week. If Maine's offense can generate and move the ball, it's going to be close. If Richmond can spread out the ball and start to score some points, it could be a long day for Maine. But either way, I think this should be a close contest.
We wrap up Week 5 with a pair of non-conference FCS matchups, starting with Albany taking on Holy Cross at 1 o'clock. Tim, this is a rematch from last year's exciting game that really propelled the Danes to a hot start early last season.
Remember that contest where it seemed like Albany kind of was out of the game in that one, and then Holy Cross is running the ball to run out the clock, and all of a sudden they fumble. Albany scoops it up and scores a touchdown. It really did propel Albany to that win streak early in the season. I'm sure Holy Cross remembers that.
Oh, yes.
Really impressed with Albany last week. Again, 17-14 win over Duquesne in non-conference play. We talked about the importance of non-conference wins, and Coach Cattuso was so happy how his team played in the second half. Shut out Duquesne. DJ Crook, again, 19 of 32, pretty efficient, 261 yards and 2 touchdowns. A little bit of cause of concern was Duquesne held them to 32 yards rushing. Holy Cross enters this one with a common foe. We already saw them play Towson this year. They're 1-2 on the season. Lost to Colgate last week, but we did see Peter Pujols, their quarterback, is a very good QB for Holy Cross. I think that's going to be the key this week. But again, if you're Albany coming into this game, Krosky, the freshman running back, needs to get going a little bit better. But again, non-conference play is huge. I know it's a road game at Holy Cross, but it's certainly a manageable foe. If they can get this one, if Albany can go on the road and get a win, think back to their home schedule. They then play Maine and Villanova back at home. So this win not alone would be huge in non-conference play, but it'd be huge moving into CA football play as well.
Indeed. And finally, Rhode Island travels to Brown at 6 o'clock. Tim, this will be the 100th meeting between these two in-state rivals.
I know if you're a Rhode fan, it's been tough this year. 0-4 record right now. Did play a little bit better at Maine last week. Both of these teams have a common opponent as well in Harvard. Brown lost to Harvard last week, and Rhode the previous week lost to Harvard. It's just tough right now for Rhode. On defense, you saw Adam Parker and Tim Wineclaw, really the guys just showing up every week. 16 and 13 tackles last week. That's just alone on themselves. 100th all-time meeting, like you said. If there's any time in the year for Rhode to change things up and get a fresh start and say, all right, well, let's regroup a little bit at an 0-4 start, it's right now versus your rival in the 100th meeting all time. I know this game on paper looks like it should be a game between two teams who enter without wins, but for the state of Rhode Island and for these two teams, this is a rivalry game. This is a big bragging rights game. Rhode last won in the series in 2010, so certainly they have a little bit of an edge coming into this one again.
As always, cafootball.com is your home for links to live streams and live stats from all of Week 5 games. Also, CA.TV will have a live simulcast of CSN's broadcast of James Madison versus Stony Brook, as well as ASN's coverage of New Hampshire versus Elon.
And before I do my social media beat, let's remember Villanova lost to Penn on Thursday. Towson, as we mentioned, lost to Elon, but both of those programs have bye weeks to regroup a little bit and sit back at home and figure things out. And again, social media beat, you got to do it. CAA Football has our own official hashtag, CAAFB. You can find us on Twitter at CAA Football, on Instagram by searching CAA Football, on Facebook.com/CAA Football, and of course we're on Snapchat as well at CAA Football.
Our on-campus crew was on the road again last Saturday at Maine. See the sights and sounds of game day in Orono now, and check back Thursday for our Going Deep feature on the Black Bears. Catch it all on our blog, cafootball.wordpress.com.
And the on-campus, not a far trip this week, but
No.
it continues. We're headed to Richmond. It's going to be really exciting. Gonna pump some iron, maybe get in the gym a little bit, get some swole.
It's a teaser.
Interesting story. I'm going to tease it a little bit, but we
Yeah.
are going to be all over the weight room at UR this weekend. On-campus coverage again is continuing. You can follow that all on social media as well.
That is it from us today. We'll see you again right here next week for another episode of This Week in CA Football. Enjoy the game Saturday.